somehow. Like my kids decided to get up later, and then I had to drop off one of the kids at the farm, which turned out to be half an hour later because my kid was in a mood. And anyway, and then my computer was in a mood, and then I had the time difference wrong. So it's a great day.
Well, what I did because you told me last time about your son and stuff. That's why I made it 10:30. If you looked at the invite, rather than 10, I was trying to accommodate you.
Yeah, no, it's and but so when you wrote 10 o'clock, I was like, oh, I got plenty of time then. But because I thought Chicago and our time is the same right now, but
Oh,
we don't have daylight savings.
yeah.
So I guess we're an hour off now. So it's 10 to 10 here now.
Oh, wow. Yeah, it's
So
10 to 11 here right now.
okay, well, we're here.
Yes, we are. Good to see you.
Yeah, you
As you
too.
know, I've been promoting you up and down, left and right, as all possible. So I really
I
appreciate
noticed.
I really appreciate you meeting. I'm wearing the swag right now.
Yeah, I see it.
So I've been Rachel's been talking you up. I don't know if you saw her promo that she did for you and I.
I
I even
did.
told her make sure you add the YouTube channel to that as well. So just want to start off with this could be just an interview I like to post on my channel to help promote you, and then also to just hear about Funky Moose, because once I found out about it through 33 RPM a long time ago, about a month or two ago, I'm really excited for what I saw that you're doing, and it's really cool because like many record stores, like when they have, for instance, when they have YouTube channels, all they do is just say, "This is what I have in stock. This is what I have in stock." And
Yeah,
you are out there actually promoting Canadian artists. Like you turned me on to Cadillac. I've been listening to them now on Spotify. So
awesome.
you're, I think you're really doing a really cool thing and a really cool business and as a really cool method. So to start
Thanks.
this off, just want to tell the story. I read it online, but I'd like to hear it from you. How did Funky Moose get started?
Oh, okay. How far do you want me to go back? Because
As far as you want. It's a pretty interesting story. I saw it, so I'd hear it from you.
yeah, so I've always been involved in music in one way or another. Um, my cousin is a musician, and I he's a few years older than I am. He plays piano, and right now he plays any instrument that he can get his hands on. I thought I could do the same, so I took music lessons, or I started music lessons, and my teacher was, well, let's just say, not very encouraging. That's putting it nicely. So I gave up on that. So that always, to this day, I'm still kicking myself for not continuing that. Um, but that's kind of where it started. You know, the love of music. My dad was always involved in local radio, so he was always hanging around in a radio studio, and he often took me along to just hang out and see the behind the scenes type thing. And of course, the radio station back then had shelves and shelves of records that I could go through. Of course, I couldn't play them because the turntables were in the control room, which I had access to, but not when shows were recording.
Of course.
So for me, a lot of it was, just looking them up in the computer, because there was a very basic computer where you could look up catalog numbers and
Mhm.
then you could pull them from the shelf. And that's a lot of, I did a lot of that. So go into the computer, find artist, and then go on the shelf, pull it out, and just admire the artwork. And then later on, I got into radio myself, kind of followed in my dad's footsteps. But at that time, everything turned digital, so I was playing mostly MD, CD, and anything from the computer at that time. Um, but that was still, part of part of me, I guess,
Right.
music. Um, so fast forward to where I immigrated into Canada with my wife. My wife is from here. Um, I left all my music behind. we literally moved here with 4 suitcases and a backpack.
Oh, wow.
So everything I left behind. And then when we got here, thrift shops and walking around and seeing some records, and I was like, these things coming back because I haven't touched them in forever.
Right.
And I was kind of out of touch because I was at that stage in life where I didn't really look at. I was just involved in the radio station at that time, but never really looked into vinyl again. And then uh, said thrift shop had a very basic turntable, one that I wouldn't consider buying now. But it was like, it's cool to have, and the records that are here. I mean, we found a few that kind of interesting a little bit.
Mhm.
So I thought, let's see if I can start my collection again. I don't know, maybe hunting is something that could be fun for the both of us, like my wife and I, and because she's a country fan, I'm not. But it's like finding music is what was interesting at that time.
Right.
So bought that turntable. It's funny because the lady at the thrift shop, there was no price on it, and I brought it upstairs. I'm like, how much do you want for it? And she's like, I have no idea. I said, $5. She goes, sure. It's like, sweet. Turntable for $5. I mean, it was a crappy, realistic, whatever, you know, but whatever. It got me back into collecting records. And then a neighboring town had a garage sale going around town, and I grabbed a box of records, picked out, I don't know, 10, 15, and then I had a box of records that I wouldn't be doing anything with because I didn't want those records. And then all of a sudden, there was one day where my whole past kind of came back to me because I have a background in web design. I have a background in retail sales, and at that time, I was running a web design agency from my home here, and all of a sudden, my light bulb went on. I was like, I'm missing retail sales because when you're a web designer, you can't physically hand over a product to a customer when it's done. Um, and all of a sudden, it clicked. I was like, I need to build a website where I can sell physical things, and I have a box of records next to my desk. Why don't I sell that?
Right.
So, and in that time, I also started ordering a few records from Amazon because at that time there was only one reputable record store in Canada online that I could find. I mean, in all fairness to all the record stores online that were available at that time, I didn't do a lot of research, but one kept popping up. um, so bought from Amazon. I was kind of underwhelmed with the experience. I got it in an oversized box, and the record was flopping around in that box. I'm like,
I just got one myself the other day. I understand.
yeah, yeah. So I was like, I can probably do this better. And way back, I also ran, or I was the manager for a fair size online store back in Holland. So I knew, how to handle an online store. I knew how to design a website, and I knew how to sell products. So it all came together, and the records as a background. I was like, I can do this better. So I made one phone call because I Googled, what was it, record distribution in Canada or something to that extent.
Right.
First one that popped up had a phone number. I called them, explained the situation. I have this idea, um, and I wanna do this, but I don't know where to start. He was like, "Well, I can open up an account for you, like just like that." It's like, "Sure." So then we started details like, okay, is there a minimum order quantity? How much can I sell them for? Stuff like that. And he was very accommodating. The guy was really awesome to talk to. Um, and he kind of walked me through the steps like, okay, these are the records you need to have on the store because these are selling like hotcakes.
Right.
Um, no, and that kind of evolved into what it is now. And from the beginning, so I started the site. actually, after I hung up the phone, I was like, great, now I have an account. Now I need a way to sell them. So that's how I started the website, and it kind of just grew and evolved from there. Um, Always having in mind that I wanted to support Canadian artists in one way or another. So with the help of the distributor at the time, the my sales rep was very much into the indie scene in Canada. So he recommended a bunch of artists that are, maybe not on a big record label, but they were distributing.
Mm.
So I was like, I'll put them on the site and see what happens. So and yeah, like I said, that's where the ball started rolling, and it kind of evolved into what it is now.
So is it actually true, like I saw in the Canadian thing, like you actually have like a real record store in your basement, just about like
Yeah,
with
pretty much.
organized the way it is like a record store if I walked into one?
Not quite, because normally in a record store you would have, sections with jazz, rock, and whatever, and then sorted by alphabet, but we do it by catalog number.
Okay.
um, but we do have, and I shouldn't say catalog number, it's inventory number. So we assign a number to each record that we have, and that's how everything is sorted. But yeah, we have the classic record bins and shelves with accessories, and yeah, if I move this into a store, then it would pretty much be a record store. Yeah.
Okay. So you mentioned Amazon before. So how did you make that? What points exactly specifically did you decide that, okay, this Amazon experience was horrible, which I agree sometimes are not the best, and how can I improve on that? What areas did you actually point out that you made, like say that you want to make Funky Moose better than Amazon, and how do you make it better for the experience?
So I started researching. I mean, not only from my own experience with Amazon was like, meh, okay,
Right.
but nothing special. And the more because I've been following the VC for, well, ever since I started that. So I started looking at videos, and actually Ron, is that his name now? Oh, I'm butchering that. Ron.
Rotary?
Yes,
Yeah.
he had a few videos about where he had valuable records come in, and he was always commenting on the way it was packaged. And I was like, okay, then this is how record collectors want their stuff packaged. So I started following his videos and picked up on his comments. And so the record, like the standard mailers, of course, that's what I started with because that's all I could find here in Canada.
Right.
But I made sure that they were, packaged nice and tight and had bubble wrap and stiffeners if it's just one record. And I made sure that the package arrived, or the record arrived in the way that I had it here at at its point of destination. So that was one thing that I focused on pretty hard.
Okay.
Um, And then, of course, Canada is not known for their great shipping rates, especially compared to the US with the media mail. So that was one thing I started hammering on as soon as I could. As soon as I started having some sort of volumes, I started talking to Canada Post to get better rates. Um, and now I'm to a point where um, the rates from Canada Post are decent, but they could still be better. And now I'm kind of doing this with UPS and Canada Post because UPS has great rates for me now.
Okay.
So with those rates, I can go back to Canada Post. I'm like, well, if you want me to sell more through Canada Post again, then give me better rates. So it's always a negotiating thing. So yeah, the shipping is one thing that I focused on, and customer service, because I didn't get that from Amazon at all.
Right.
Um, well, I shouldn't say that. Amazon is pretty decent when it comes to customer service because they don't care. You know, yeah, yeah, just here's a new one, or send it back and we'll send you a new one, or something like that. And I figured I want to go the extra mile for my customers, because I'm right now we're to a point where I don't know the names of every customer, but the repeat customers, I do recognize, like yourself, for example. Um, but it's I wanted to become I wanted my store to become a hybrid between an Amazon and a mom and pop shop,
Okay.
where the staff, so myself and my staff members would know the customer, but we would have, we would be, I mean, being as big as Amazon is a stretch, but we would
Right.
be big enough to have everything you need, basically.
Okay. With that said, I saw online as well, and I have experienced it myself being the KTEL guy that I am. Um, what's your process with used records? Because I just have to say I was blown away by, I mean, the quality and how do you grade and how do you go through that whole grading process? For me personally too, but Discogs, that's the number one thing that prevents me from selling on Discogs. I think people get bashed in the comments all the time for, your grading was wrong and all that.
Yeah.
What's the process you go through with your buyer and everything to find used records, find what's available for selling, and how do you grade them accordingly for the customers?
So when I started, I consciously made the decision that I didn't want to get into used records, exactly because of that reason. Because I saw the comments and I saw um, the social media where people are like, "Is this VG plus?" and then show a picture of a, you know bastardized good plus maybe record.
Right,
You know? So, and then you find out that the record was worth $5, and then I figured, well, is it really worth arguing over a $5 record?
right,
So at that point, I was like, I don't need that. I'm just going to focus on the new records and accessories. Um, I know there's more money in used records, but um, I just don't want that headache right now. So for that, I I kind of steered away from that for a long time until my neighbor at that time, we have a rental house and he was renting it from us, and he came over with the rent check, and he was asking me about this moose sign that I have in my driveway. And I'm like, well, it's an online record store. And he's like, records? Yeah. Huh. Interesting. He's like, where would you get those? I was like, well, right now nowhere, but used records you would pick up at garage sales and whatever. And he's like, oh, I like that. I like auctions, and I like, you know, whatever, wherever you can buy used stuff. And his literal words were like, I can find shit for you. And I was like, all right, well, find some records, bring them over, and we'll see, what we'll do with them. So it wasn't a week before he brought his first batch of records, and he gave me a box, and he was like, "Is this what you're looking for?" And I flipped through, and I was like, "This is not good." So I was like, "Okay, if you want to get serious about this, then we need to set some ground rules. I'll show you, the grades that we're looking for, what to look for exactly." And he has no experience at that time with records themselves. He's a music fan. He's a pop culture fan, and he's a music fan, whatever. Um, but never really into records. He's about 10 years younger than I am, so he probably missed all of that. Um, so we sat down, and I was like, okay, so this is what a record looks like. These are scratches. You don't want these. Go through the whole process of what is it, a good record, a decent record, and a record you don't want.
right,
Um, so he picked up on that, and as he was bringing smaller batches over, because he was like, I don't want to buy 1,000 records and then find out that they're all crap. So he brought smaller batches, started with 10, 20 records, um, bring them over, and we'd go over them together, um, just grade them, and then go through the gold mine standard. We decided, and everybody should decide that the gold mine standard is the gold standard.
right,
Um, that's what record grading is. Follow that, and you should be okay. Um, so we started with that set of rules, and then he started finding better records. He started understanding which records would actually sell, which are valuable, which are not, and just it kind of evolved from there. Um, Actually, now that I think of it, we did have used record at that time, but that was only one batch that I kind of ran into by accident, I think.
Okay.
Anyway, that doesn't really matter for the story. Um, so it kind of evolved into him knowing what to buy. Um, and then we got to a point where it's like, okay, people are seem to be happy. We haven't had any complaints. We started asking feedback from the customers that were buying those, and we wanted honest feedback. Like, is this graded correctly? Is this undergraded? Is this overgraded? What do you think? And we got a lot of feedback from clients and or from customers, and that was great. Um, and the more we started doing it, the more we decided like we would rather make a dollar or two less per record and have a happy customer that wants to come back than, you know, selling this $5 record for $8 and then find out that we misgraded it and and the customer doesn't come back. So that's kind of what we're doing now. Jeremy, he's in charge of most of the record grading, and Jennifer, both are uh, grading records. And like I said, we go by the gold mine standard, and then it's basically if it's, for example, a VG plus record, you look at it and it looks VG plus, but you're kind of hesitant, like I'm not sure about this one,
Right.
then automatically just downgrade it.
Right.
Because if you're not 100% about it, then the customer probably isn't either. And that comes back to I'd rather have a happy customer and make a dollar less than the other way around.
So you find, I mean, you really reach out for a lot of feedback, Mark. Speaking of which,
Yeah.
talking to dealer, I talked to some other dealers, it's these $1 million peddlers, guys I talked interviewed as well, and they say they hear a lot of the negative and not the positive. Do you find that, or do you really do you get positive as well as negative? How does that from your customers?
Oh, if you don't ask, you don't get. So we ask for positive and negative feedback. Luckily, almost everything is positive. Of course, we're human. We make mistakes. Sometimes there is a record that we missed a scratched on,
Right.
or um, I don't know. We had a case where a record is supposed to be a 2 LP and there's only one record in there, but we didn't pick up on that, so it only arrived with one record. It's little things like that that we miss every once in a while, but those are very rare. Um, yeah, of course we get negative feedback because we're a business. We're human. Mistakes are made. I mean, I'm not going to say we're perfect.
Right.
Um, but I believe it's the way you handle the negative feedback, and that's kind of also my background in the marketing portion of it. Like, bad feedback doesn't have to be bad. You can turn that into something positive.
Right.
Like, for example, if I send you a KTEL record, and I don't know, you're expecting 22 greatest hits, and you get a record that's completely different from the covered. I don't know, maybe we missed that somehow.
Right.
It's maybe a bad example, but you know,
No,
you
I
know
know
what I
what you're
mean?
getting at.
You get something that you're not expecting. I'm not gonna argue. Why would I, like, especially KTEL is probably between $5 and $10
Right.
max. So if I'll just give you your money back, keep the record, but why make life more difficult?
Right.
So usually with the way we handle that, uh, we turn the negative feedback into positives. So that's kind of the whole idea. And it's not like we're going to bend over backwards for someone who claims something. Like, if it's plausible, then sure, we'll work with you. But if after, for example, some new records are not perfect when they
Right.
come in the mail. So, and especially because Canada's so big, if I send something to BC, to Rachel, for example,
Right.
um, and it's a new record and it comes out of the shrink wrap warped, well, show me a video, and if it's warped, then sure, I'll send you a new one. But if it's almost flat and it kind of has a little bit of a wobble in there, it's like, yeah, okay, well, you know what? How about I give you a discount on your next order?
Okay.
You know, something like that. It's always um, uh, a balance between, you know, I of course I don't want to give away records and lose money,
Oh,
but it's also the other way around where I am the customer. I've been the customer. I want to be treated, maybe not as a king, but I want to be treated fairly.
right.
So that's always the way I look at it. And if that's one way of getting positive feedback, I'll do it.
So go over the ordering process because, like, for instance, I just ordered. I have Beatles and Enjoy Division sitting with you right now. Go over
Yep.
the order process and also the gold subscription process and how that works as well.
So there are
Record.
three different sections. So we have new records, used records, and accessories,
Okay.
and then we have the gold subscription. So with new records, we keep very little in stock, because stock costs money, and the more we have in stock, the more we have invested, the more we can't buy used records. You know, so we try to keep that low because we have a fairly quick connection with our suppliers.
Mm.
We built an integration with their inventory, so our site shows inventory. No, our site shows a hybrid between our and their inventory.
Okay.
So, for example, Pink Floyd, Dark Side of the Moon, whatever. The 2016 reissue. If we have it in stock, our site will show we have it in stock. If we don't have it in stock, but our supplier does, it shows on the site that that we don't have it in stock, but our supplier does. So it should be able to ship within 5 to 10 business days. And then the third option is if we don't have stock and our supplier doesn't have stock, then it's just not available to order. And then there's a button where you can enter your email address to be notified when it comes back in stock.
Okay.
So yeah, if you place an order for a record that's not in stock here, but it is in stock at our supplier, you place the order automatically overnight. We place an order with our supplier, and then it should be here the next week. Right now, there's a little bit of a delay for whatever reason, but normally it's here within a week. Then for used records, what you see on the site that's available, you place an order for. I'm just looking over at the records right now. Bill, I can't see. Whatever. You buy a used record. It's available. It's being shipped the same or next business day. And then accessories is a bit of a mix between that. There are some products that we try to keep in stock as much as possible. If it's not in stock, we'll be able to get it from our supplier pretty quickly. Again, for the accessories, it's a little bit different because we have different suppliers for each. So, for example, Groove Washer comes from Groove Washer in the States. The AM cleaning products distributor in Ontario. Spin Clean, another distributor also in Ontario. So it's usually what's on the website. It'll say if it's available or not. And then the gold subscription is kind of like Amazon Prime, but not quite, because we don't have the luxury of cheap shipping. We do it a little differently. So when you sign up for a gold subscription, all shipping fees are going to be waived on your orders. So when you place an order on the website and you are an active subscriber, you'll have the option to, as a shipping option, add to subscription. So when you choose that, you don't pay for shipping and it just gets added to your queue, and then we add whatever you order to your bin. And then when your subscription is due for renewal, then we grab everything that's in that bin and ship it out to you.
Okay. So that's the record store. Now I'd like to talk a little bit about the YouTube channel that you have.
Yep.
As I said before, and I will say for anybody watching this video that you know, YouTube channel to me is more than just a record store channel. There are channels out there that you probably
Yep.
know of and you've seen where again they're just like, this is what we have in stock, and then that's all
Yep.
it really is. So what is your goal with you and Joel with the with the YouTube channel? What do I expect to see out there? How are you out there promoting some of these artists? Like I said, I found out about Cadillac through you, and they've been on my Spotify list ever since
Yeah.
I heard them.
Yeah. They're great people too.
Yeah.
So initially, way back when I started Funky Moose Records, I knew I needed a social presence. I started doing videos pretty much as soon as I opened store, and those videos were meant for the VC. But the time it took for me, and well, yeah, the time was an issue, and because it was all very new, and at that time I was just dealing in new records, so I had new records coming in, and I could show the cover, but that was about it. I didn't want to open it because if it's an open record, I can't sell it as new, you know.
Yeah.
So, and at that time, I had to be very careful about money at that time, you know. So uh, I did a few videos, you know, showing off new records, and I was like, okay, this is probably pretty boring because you can see these pictures online if you want.
Right.
You know, and then I started doing a few videos here and there of new products that came in, like accessories that I could show off. And then I was like, yeah, okay, so now I showed all the products that I have. Now what? You know, so there was always the intent of starting a YouTube channel, but there was never really a plan.
Right.
And then when Joel and I have been friends forever, and he wanted to be involved in the business in one way or another, but we never had really had a position for him
Right.
at that time. So what we again, light bulb moment. He's a big fan of podcasts, like the comedians like Bill Burr and uh, the other comedians, Tom
Right.
Segura and those guys. And he said, we can probably do something similar to this, you know? And I thought, well, it's kind of a marketing thing.
Mhm.
So it has to be related to music or records in some way. Now, Joel is not very much into records aside from the work that he does for me. Um, but he is a music fan, like a lot. So when we first started, I don't know if you've seen the first few episodes of our show.
I'll look at them. I haven't seen it.
Good. Keep it that way. So we didn't really have an idea aside from, okay, let's open up our laptops, see what's in the music news in the music industry right now, and we'll talk about it. So that's how we started the first episode. We sat down, we had a laptop in front of us, and recorded us talking about the news. That was pretty terrible. Um, but I mean, it was a start of something, and we both agreed that if we don't start something, then nothing's going to happen. So we have to start somewhere, do something. So the first few episodes, we started from the couch, talking about music news. We did that a few episodes, and then it got to a point where we both were just reading the headlines and never really reading the article itself. We were commenting on the headlines. That was about it. And I was like, okay, this is not going anywhere. We need to do something a little bit different. And at that time, right when we both had that idea, we actually had a guest on. Paris Pick reached out to us, and she's like, I've been watching the show. I'm a fan. Can I be on? And Joel and I look at each other like, sure. I don't know how that's going to work. And that was just when the pandemic hit too, because Joel and I couldn't be in the same room at that time. So it was okay. How are we going to figure this out? So we played around with Zoom, but it wasn't that great then with the security, and um, we tried some free options. They weren't that great either, and both our internet were not fantastic. So it was all very, you know, this could be something, but there's always something. And but we just muscled through, and we had Paris on as our first guest, and then we started thinking like this could be something. This maybe this is what we need to do. So we after that we did a few, just Joel and I again, because of course we didn't plan for having more artists on. But when that episode came out, another band reached out to us asking if they could be on, and then we were like, okay, this is definitely something, because if they're reaching out to us,
Right.
with our 48 followers or whatever it was at the time, then we must be onto something. And again, we just started reaching out to bands that we kind of knew of. Joel had a few contacts in his phone that he had encounters with in the past, like, for example, Canadian Idol contestant Teresa Sekurka.
Right.
She is from Saskatoon, so close to us, and Joel happened to run into her at a bar years ago, and they chatted, and so he reached out to her saying that this is what we're doing. We're trying something. I don't know where it's going. Do you want to be on? She was like, yeah, sure. So um, we started reaching out to more and more people. People started reaching out to us, and that's how it's kind of again snowballed. Um, so we right now are booking. We're beginning of June. We're booking into August for artists
Oh,
right
wow.
now, um, and we have some reputable names, let's say, on our list of guests that are coming up. Actually, this afternoon we're going to be recording with. I mean, he's going to be the first international artist that we have on. Um, but he's on a Canadian record label, so that's kind of why he's in the show. Um, but then, for example, the guys from Cadillac, the one that you're following now, we always envisioned having the podcast in house where we can have the bands here
Right.
and bust out into song if they want to. Of course, with the pandemic, that wasn't an option. But when the rules and regulations kind of loosened up here, it just happened to be that Kit he's in Saskatoon, so that's only an hour from here. And we explained the situation. If you want to be here, fine. If not, totally cool too. We'll do Zoom like we've done every other 50 episodes. And he was like, "Yeah, no, I'll take a drive." Oh, okay, something new again. So yeah, he was here, of course, trying to social distancing and whatever. So we tried to make everything work as good as possible, and that was a very exciting moment for us because that was the first time we had a face-to-face kind of interaction with one of our guests. And then this last Saturday, we were in Skull Creek Studios in
Oh, wow.
Saskatoon, and we are. I don't know if I should say this, but we there's a video production agency that kind of wanted to work with us and Skull Creek. So we all got together. Skull Creek recorded a demo in front of us. We interviewed them, about the demo, how this all works and whatever. And prehistoric Productions, the video company, they were following us around with the cameras. So it was very exciting. So that's going to be top notch video and audio production. It's
Awesome.
really exciting. And on the drive back, they had a demo done. So it
Oh,
was
wow.
like, yeah. So that's something we're pretty excited about. And now that everything is opening up a little bit, we're planning to do more on location stuff. Um, and we kind of decided that we want to focus on Canadian talent because that's there's so much talent here that is going unnoticed.
Right.
And if there's something we can do, then I feel like this is something we can do for them. You know, uh, we're not huge. Our channel is not huge, and I don't think it's gonna be huge. It could be, but it might not be. But it's
Right.
one of those things that, well, if it happens, it happens. Um, so back to way back when we started, we didn't have a plan, and we still don't.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So yeah, then question for you. Tell us about Mark, you personally. So like, you're into vinyl. If you had to pick like 5 records or pick like what kind of music are you into? What do you personally spin?
I'm a big Queen fan.
Okay.
So that's the one artist that I want all records of. I'm missing a handful. Um, and I'm so you have different kind of collectors, right? You have the collectors that want everything in pristine condition. They want their favorite record, all the versions, all the represses, all the reissues, whatever.
Vinyl.
Yeah, and I'm not one of those. I collect because I like the music. Um, Queen is an exception because that's the only artist that I'll collect whatever I can get from.
Okay.
And for example, A Day at the Races is one of those albums that kind of got me into vinyl and the whole music business because that was the record that my grandma always played when I was over, and that kind of grew the love of Queen. Anyway, so yeah, Queen is the band that I would have in my collection, but there's anything from Queen. I have Run the Jewels. I have in there too. Pearl Jam. Um, Indie artists, of course, from Canada. I have in there. Um, it's very varied. It's not aside from Queen. There's not a specific genre that I'm focusing on. But if it's an album, and of course I have the luxury that I see a lot of used records come by here. Um, that's an advantage, but also a disadvantage because there are a lot of cool records that I would like in my collection. But on the other hand, I'm also running a business,
Right.
so if it's a record that having in my collection and maybe spin once or twice a year versus getting paid whatever it's worth, it's like, do I
Yeah.
really need it in my collection? I'll just put it on my turntable, listen to it, and then it goes in my collection or in the inventory, depending on how much I like it. So that's how a lot of records end up in my collection. My wife Jennifer, she's also in the business, and she does a lot of the grading. She does a lot of the inventory management, so to speak. So she comes across a lot of cool um, looking covers, and she just she picks them out and she was like, "Oh, what is this?" And then it goes on the turntable, and then we both listen to it. It's like, "Oh, this is pretty cool. Maybe that doesn't go into inventory, and then it ends up in our collection." So yeah, uh, I don't have a very specific genre per se. Um, I also listen to Tidal, so my playlist there, anything from I don't know, uh, Cap Mo blues to hell, I even play Ariana Grande if I like the song.
No problem with that.
Yeah, and I think I'll have to say this. I I don't have anything against the VC or whatever, but there are sometimes where I'm like, okay, you can be a little less judgmental, you
Yeah.
know? Like, okay, this person doesn't like jazz. So what?
Oh, Mark, I mean, yeah, I can. You just see the flack I catch all the time because I mean, I'm teased all the time because of my KTEL nostalgia. KTEL is nostalgia for
Yeah,
me.
so I wanted to ask you actually. I'm gonna flip the tables on you a little bit.
Sure.
What's up with your KTEL obsession?
I grew up on KTEL. KTEL was for me the early Spotify.
Yeah,
I had the choice of, buy the whole record. I mean, I only had $7.99 or $8 from my allowance to buy a whole record, or I could buy a KTEL and have a whole bunch of more songs on that. And I was just kind of always fascinated with the way that they stuffed the tracks on there, and
yeah,
the way that they marketed. They didn't market to record stores. It was a Canadian-based company out of Manitoba that Phil Knives actually he marketed to hardware stores, grocery stores, and basically brought people to this whole record that never experienced a record before because these customers were never going to record stores.
yeah,
And so it was kind of the cool nostalgia for me. And it just kind of grew from there. I was like, wow, I mean, they had they had this record, but then it has a different Canadian version, plus it has an American version because they marketed differently to the two cities. So it just kind of grew from there, and I was like just fascinated with it. And so I've been collecting it. I have like 250 KTELs now. So
oh wow,
that I've actually collected.
yeah,
I had the first KTEL, which was original country artist by Country Hits. It was released approximately 1964. They don't know exactly when because it was mail ordered, and he released it with a country artist, but didn't even have their rights to have the music. But because it sold, he was able to pay them the royalties that he owed them.
oh
And
smart,
from there, it went on to the polka hits. Was he sold millions of these polka records? Again, he brought in people that weren't buying records to buying
yeah,
records, and so yeah, it's just fascinating. They'll take a cut of Layla and they'll just chop it to death. They in the '70s they re-recorded stuff, and then in the '80s they started pulling back on it. So I guess yeah, I just kind of just grew and grew and grew from there, and I've been really into it. So I picked for my name of my channel was JJ22 Explosive Hits because that was 1972 when they released that record behind me there, and
yeah,
um, that's where I actually came up with the name JJ22 Explosive Hits. But on my
awesome,
channel, I do like I am into all kinds of music. I'm a deadhead. I have lots of dead soundboard recordings. I'm into the Beatles. I'm into all the classic rock as well. I joke because sometimes KTEL pressings aren't the best, so I'll play a KTEL record. I'm listening to it, and then I'll put on like a Beatles or a Metallica, and I'm like, whoa, quality. I'm like blown away. Like, it's always joke saying if you play KTEL for a while, it makes all your records sound better. I don't think I could ever honestly, because I'm so into KTEL, I could ever honestly judge a record, like for the sound quality or pressing, kind of like be this guy Patrick. That's what he does. But yeah, they tease me all the time for it, and it's fine. And again, yeah, that's what we're saying is that people can like what they like or not like what they like, and that's what brings it to the vinyl community. I think is that you bring to the table what you have in your collection. Like there's my friend, we're doing a meetup. Actually, he was a customer of yours, Sean. We're doing a meetup on Sunday because he lives in Madison, which isn't that far from here.
okay,
And so, yeah, and he's into comedy, he's into old jazz, and he just brings that to the table what he's into. And I just think you bring to the vinyl community what you have, and you just take it from there and roll with it.
yeah,
As I created a little segment on my channel called No KTEL Thursdays, where I talk about movies or I talk about different records, and I don't talk about KTEL. It's kind of a segment on my show, so
yeah.
my channel.
It's funny because we have a few customers that always come back to us for buying the stuff that they can't find anywhere else.
Right.
I have so we're an online store, and so everything, all the ordering is online. But we have one specific customer that always calls in for his orders.
Oh wow.
He's an older gentleman. I'm always on the phone with him for at least 20 minutes, half an hour, because he wants to tell his stories about you know uh, who he met that time, and he's going on music cruises,
Oh
and
wow.
yeah, he has great stories. Um, but he's always buying the records that nobody else. I shouldn't say that, but that nobody else is looking for.
Right.
Um, so, and that's another thing. We when Jeremy started adding records to the site, um, it's like, okay, I don't know what this is, and I don't really have time to research it, but I'll add it to the site and see what happens. And a lot of those kinds of records actually sell because you don't know what it is doesn't mean it's not good,
Right.
and it doesn't mean that nobody wants it. So we're to a point where we just add, if it has any value, we'll just add it, and it sells.
Oh wow.
And there are we so speaking of negative feedback, every once in a while we get an email from someone that's, oh, why do you have so many crap used records? I'm like, you can judge that all you want, but we have clientele for this. You know, just because you don't like it doesn't matter. Someone else doesn't.
Right.
Um, we had a we had a sale on not that long ago for select records. Those were the records that have been sitting on the shelf here for a while, and we obviously need space for new arrivals. So we had those on sale, and I sent an email out to everybody, all of our customers, and that was one of the comments. Well, this is a crappy sale because it's all junk in there. Okay, how about you look at our sales and see how many we actually sold? So I'm always a little bit that rubs me the wrong way, so to speak, when somebody is judging um, another person for their record collection or whatever they're listening to. Like, who am I to judge? If you listen to KTEL, great, good for you. There's probably a story behind it, and just because I don't like it doesn't mean you shouldn't either.
Right.
So that's kind of the whole philosophy around the store too. Um, we don't judge. I I mean, I come across records, we put it on. It's like, that's definitely not for me. But there was some psychedelic rock band, and it's really psychedelic. The cover, I don't remember the band name now, but the cover was interesting, and it was some 70s psych, and we put it on just to listen what it was, because it was a fairly valuable record, and we couldn't figure out why. So we put it on, and we listened to it, and Jeremy and I both looked at each other like, "What the hell is this?" And he said, "You probably have to be on acid to appreciate this." So we were like, "Well, whatever. We'll just put it in the bins and see what happens." And same evening, it sold.
Oh wow.
So there's always something for someone.
Right. That's, I mean, that's the whole fun of record collecting. So uh,
Exactly.
one of the things I like I said about KTEL, just to give you an example too, is like one of the ones you sent me that I ordered from you. When you opened up the sleeve, it actually had an ad in there for 1982 Atari games, and
Oh yeah, yeah.
I found like books in there, and I found like different things that are like, it's really funny the way looking at the KTELs and the evolution of ordering, because you're an online business. I think you'll appreciate this. They had like an envelope in there, and it said you wait 4 to 6 weeks for delivery for your order. Like you had to put it in an envelope with a check, mail it to
Oh
retail, and then they would then send you your order of what you ordered. And I
yeah,
just find that hilarious that was like the norm back then, of like 4 to 6 weeks. And if we don't
yeah,
get something overnight from Amazon, we get upset. It's
yeah,
like, we can't get it
yeah,
the next day. We're ready to lose it. And then look what
yeah,
they did back then. It was also a record I got from somebody else, a Star Wars record. Had an original order formatted too for a Star Wars T-shirt from '77. I was like,
yeah,
and that one said 8 to 10 weeks for delivery.
yeah, yeah. And I actually have those conversations with people too. Like, um, if we don't have stock for a certain record, and somebody orders technically right at the wrong time, so to speak, it takes a little bit longer for the record to show up, right? And I've had the conversation with some of the people that missed. They assumed the record was in stock, and they were upset. "Well, why didn't you send it yet?" "Well, it's not here yet, so I can't send anything if I don't have it." "Well, if I order it from Amazon, I have it in 2 days." I'm like, "That's great. We're not Amazon. If
Exactly.
if you want it from Amazon, be my guest. And then I'm always, in a nice way, try to flip it like, well, is this an emergency? It's a record. So
Right.
you want us to hurry up so you can sit down and relax? It's there's no scenario in my head, unless it's a like a birthday gift or an anniversary gift or whatever. There is no
I'm chuckling because I'm like, or you need it for no K till Thursday to show. My dilemma is actually funny when you say it because I needed Mo better. I wanted to do a segment. I just on my channel. I did it on Brandford Marsalis, and because he's on a lot of the Dead stuff and All My Brothers, and then he's also did the movie Mo Better Blues. But because a lot of my stuff when we had babies, I got moved out of the office, and my physical media basically is on a 8 terabyte server behind me.
yeah.
And so I wanted something like physically to show. So I was just like, I need this for no K till Thursday so I can show the DVD. And, so it's kind of funny you're saying that because I'm like, I need it tomorrow.
Yeah. And of course there are exceptions, but I would say 95% of the time there shouldn't be a hurry for you to get your record,
Right.
right?
Well, and like I mean, the ones I have sitting with you, the Beatles' greatest hits or New Order, I'll get it. Your Joy Division, I'll get it when it comes. I'm really not like
Yeah.
sitting there chomping at the bit. I love your service, so I'm gonna wait patiently.
Yeah, and I understand, like, if you buy something and you paid for it, you want it. I'm totally the same way. But I mean, if you read the website, it does say, it does have a time frame where we ship things. And if we say between 5 to 10 business days, and you send us an email after 3 days, why isn't this shipped yet? Well, we're still keeping our end of the bargain, you know. But I mean, those are the exceptions. Like 90 whatever percent of the customers are very, very patient, very happy in general. Um, of course, there are exceptions where we can't deliver what we promise, and that sucks. I mean, we're the in between uh, person. We've had scenarios where the inventory status that I was explaining earlier
Mm,
um, wasn't working properly. So some items showed as in stock at our supplier when they actually weren't.
right,
And so we get a back order notification from our supplier when we order it. And then we have to convey that to the customer. And the customer is like, well, I kind of need it before, you know, said birthday or whatever.
right.
And then I'm like, I can't perform magic. I'm, I'm, I'm sorry, and then that scenario sucks. And that's something I don't enjoy doing, but I
Right.
mean, that's part of the business, I guess.
Well, that's all I have, Mark. I want to thank you for your time today, for meeting with me, and I'll be posting this on my channel soon. I hope. I
Awesome.
mean, is there anything you want me to edit out? I think we're okay. I'll stop the recording. Oh, didn't want to do that. There we go.
Wrong button.